Role of a franchise consultant. Our role is to bring experience to the table and have you look at the big picture. Not all, but many franchise consultants, including myself, have owned franchises. I've owned franchises, non-franchises, have had side hustles, worked for corporate America, have been downsized and everything else in between. So a good franchise consultant can really not start talking to you about brands on the first call, but they really spend time getting to know you. What are your goals? Not simply asking you in a kind of an interrogation style, as I jokingly say, do you want a restaurant or not? Great. Do you want a brick and mortar or not? Great. And checking down the list like a portal. Sometimes you need to go in down a few layers. I don't want brick and mortar. Why is that? It takes too long to get open. All right, well, that's maybe a question. If that business could potentially get up and running in less than a year, would you be open to it? Yeah. Okay. Let's talk to that franchisor about their selection process, the third party that they potentially hire to find the right location to really expedite things. Now, no one can predict how long that will take, but let's put that fear aside and not leave any stone unturned to make sure that we figure out, okay, if we're ruling out brick and mortar, that's great. We have a selection. We got to narrow this down, but let's look at the specifics. We're going to look at financials. If you can't afford it, why look at it? What are the funding options? Just because you have $1 million in a traditional IRA that you can use, you may not be comfortable using retirement. So we'll look at, should you use it, the pros and cons? Should you look at different resources? The skill set you bring to the table. Most people think to own a McDonald's, you need to know you had to have worked in fast food. You do not. That franchisor will easily put together a system and teach you and train you on that. But what skill set do you need to the table? If that specific business has you knocking on doors and cold calling, and that is not for you, that may not be a good fit, regardless of what the widget, what the product or service is. So we really spend the time explaining, covering the process and what to expect, setting the expectations, figuring out, more important than anything else, if a franchise is a good fit or not based off of what you're looking to accomplish. I jokingly say, if your plan is to buy a McDonald's to change the menu, probably not a good fit for franchising. But if you're looking to invest in a franchise and have some autonomy and run the business, handle the marketing over and beyond, do a podcast and do meetings and town halls and TED Talks and stuff like that over and beyond, that's great. Those are things to actually talk about with the franchisor about the different roles of the franchisee. So we look at everything. We don't just simply take it at face value. We break it down. We dive a little bit deeper. Why are you attracted to a certain brand? I like food because there's a lot of demand. People have to eat. What about business coaching? What about expense reduction? What about it's inevitable, right? Water and smoke damage. There's going to be fires and natural disasters. That falls in the category recession resistant types of businesses. We recently had COVID. That was a stress test for some businesses where they were forced to change. We saw the businesses that thrive, the businesses that close. We don't want to ever see that again, but which companies thrive? What were the differences? What has changed since then? Those are all things to consider. We have our finger on the pulse of franchising. We talk to, on a weekly basis, founders, CEOs, presidents, franchise professionals, funding professionals, franchise attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, regular attorneys, the list goes on. So kind of see what's going on. Love talking about the impact of AI, marketing, how franchises are taking advantage of certain and helping their franchisees in the process.
With your consultant's guidance, you've narrowed it down to one brand. What should you expect during the final step, Discovery Day? And how do you make that ultimate decision? Find out on episode 247 of the Franchise Freedom Podcast.